When my daughter told me to find somewhere else to live, "Dad, you're too old to handle this house alone," I packed my bags like the obedient father I'd always been. 3 days later, I was sitting in a lawyer's office, discovering that my supposedly loving daughter had played the longest con game in family history. Amanda was about to learn something important. You don't mess with a retired police detective who has 30 years of investigation experience under his belt. Let me tell you how I went from homeless widower to the man holding all the cards. My name is Dennis Martinez. I'm 58 years old, and this story has more twists than a mountain highway through Colorado. It all started with the worst phone call of my life. 2 months ago, I was just another grieving husband. My wife, Carol, died of cancer at 55 after a brutal 8-month fight that drained our savings and broke my heart completely. We'd been married 32 years, and losing her felt like losing half my soul. I thought my world was ending when the funeral director handed me her ashes in that cold ceramic urn. What I didn't know was that my real nightmare was just beginning. The funeral hadn't even been over for a week when Amanda started circling like a predator, sensing weakness. Amanda swooped in during my grief like a lawyer in designer clothes, cooing about how difficult this must be for me. Her voice dripped with fake concern that should have triggered my cop instincts. "Dad, you can't possibly manage this big house alone," she'd said, gesturing around our modest 3-bedroom ranch home. "The yard work, the maintenance, all those memories. It's really not healthy for you." I should have seen the calculation behind her concern. Amanda had always been Carol's favorite, our little princess, who could do absolutely no wrong in her mother's eyes. The golden child who never disappointed. When she married Tyler Brooks, that slick investment advisor with his fancy suits and expensive watch, Carol was so proud. She'd brag to the neighbors about Tyler's financial expertise and Amanda's success. Meanwhile, I was just the retired cop who'd spent 30 years keeping the streets safe, walking a beat, and investigating crimes while they built their fancy suburban lifestyle with money. After the funeral, Amanda became increasingly pushy about my living situation. She'd bring Tyler over for dinner, where they'd corner me with retirement community brochures and senior housing pamphlets spread across our kitchen table. "Dad, these places are wonderful," she'd insist, pointing to glossy photos of smiling elderly people playing cards. "You'd have people your own age, organized activities, absolutely no household responsibilities to worry about." What she really meant was no inheritance to split 3 ways, no inconvenient father to deal with when she wanted to sell the family home for cash. The manipulation was subtle but constant. Tyler would nod along, adding his professional opinion about how seniors benefit from structured environments and peer social interaction. Complete garbage designed to make me doubt myself. They'd bring printed articles about elderly people who'd fallen in their homes, statistics about depression in widowed seniors, horror stories about break-ins targeting older homeowners living alone. Every conversation became a sales pitch for why I needed to move somewhere safer and more appropriate for someone my age. The pressure was relentless, and in my grief, I almost started believing them. But 30 years as a detective teaches you to recognize when someone's running a con. The timing was too convenient, the pressure too intense, their concern too focused on one specific outcome. The final blow came on a Tuesday in March. I'd been living in what Amanda now called our family home for 6 weeks since Carol's death, still sleeping in our guest bedroom. I couldn't bear to pack up our master bedroom yet. Carol's clothes still hung in the closet, her reading glasses sat on the nightstand, her favorite coffee mug waited in the kitchen cabinet. Amanda arrived unannounced, with Tyler and 2 large moving boxes from U-Haul. She didn't knock, just used her key and walked in like she owned the place, which, apparently, she thought she did. "Dad, we've made a decision," she announced, like she was delivering good news instead of destroying my life. "Tyler got that promotion at the investment firm, and we need to move closer to downtown Chicago." I stared at her from my recliner, not quite understanding what she was telling me. "Move in? But Amanda, this is my home. Your mother and I bought this house in 1992. Her mask slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and calculating underneath the fake sympathy. "Actually, Dad, according to Mom's will, I inherited the house and most of the financial assets." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I felt the air leave my lungs as she continued her rehearsed speech. "I've been letting you stay here out of kindness, but it's time for you to find your own place. Mom knew I'd take better care of everything." She pulled out official-looking documents from her designer purse, spreading them across our coffee table like she was dealing cards. Legal papers with stamps and signatures that looked authentic. "Mom knew I'd take better care of the family legacy than you ever could, Dad. You never understood investments or property management. You were just the husband, after all." Just the husband. 32 years of marriage, of loving Carol through sickness and health, reduced to those 3 dismissive words. I felt something crack inside my chest like breaking ribs. That's when she delivered the killing blow with the casual cruelty that only family can manage. "Dad, I found you a nice senior apartment complex on Oak Street downtown." "Very affordable," she continued, not meeting my eyes. "Perfect for someone living on a police pension. You'll love having your independence back without all these property taxes and maintenance headaches." Affordable. My daughter was claiming to inherit $2.8 million and suggesting I move into subsidized senior housing that smelled like disinfectant and defeat every time I drove past. Tyler loaded my belongings into their silver Mercedes with the efficiency of someone disposing of trash. 2 suitcases and a cardboard box containing 32 years of memories and photographs. "Dennis, you'll love having your independence back," he said, still not meeting my eyes while hefting my clothes. "No more worrying about property taxes, home repairs, or lawn maintenance anymore." No more home, he meant. As we drove away from Maple Drive, I watched my house disappear in the rearview mirror, like it was being erased from my life forever. The house where Carol and I had raised Amanda, where we'd hosted her birthday parties and graduation celebrations, where Carol had taken her last breath holding my trembling hand. The Sunset Gardens apartment complex was exactly what you'd expect from a place charging $1,200 a month. Thin walls, thinner carpets, and a parking lot full of dented cars. The smell hit me first. Industrial cleaning supplies trying to mask decades of fried food, cigarette smoke, and the general despair of people warehoused until they die. Amanda handed me $800 in cash, like she was tipping a hotel bellhop after a particularly unpleasant stay. "This should cover your first month while you get settled in. I'll have Tyler transfer some money into your account once we sort through Mom's paperwork," she added, already checking her phone for messages. "Some money from my own wife's estate." After they left, I sat on the lumpy couch in my new studio apartment and tried to process what had just happened to my life in 4 hours. I'd gone from homeowner to tenant in a senior welfare facility, from husband and father to discarded burden taking up space in someone else's increasingly valuable real estate. But here's the thing about being a detective for 30 years. You develop instincts that never really retire. Every instinct I had was screaming that something was fundamentally wrong. Carol had been meticulous about our finances, always keeping me informed about our investments, insurance policies, and retirement planning. She made spreadsheets for everything, including our monthly budget and expenses. The woman who'd made me executor of her parents' estate when they died wouldn't have cut me out of her own will without explanation or discussion. That night, I did what any good detective does when something doesn't add up. I started investigating my own family like they were suspects in a crime. The next morning, I used the complex's spotty Wi-Fi to search for our estate attorney, Gerald Reynolds. He'd handled our house purchase, our wills, and various legal matters for over 15 years. His office was downtown, a $12 bus ride that I could barely afford, but I had to know the truth. My pension check wouldn't arrive for another week. Gerald Reynolds looked genuinely surprised when his secretary announced that Mr. Martinez was here about his wife's estate. "Dennis, my friend, I was wondering when you'd come in here. I tried calling your house several times over the past month, but Amanda said you were in Florida visiting your sister." "Florida? I don't have a sister anywhere." "Mr. Reynolds, I need to ask you about Carol's will," I said carefully, watching his face for any sign of deception or confusion about my unexpected visit. He looked puzzled, pulling out a thick manila folder from his filing cabinet. "Of course, Dennis. Didn't Amanda provide you with your copy after the reading last month?" My stomach dropped like I'd stepped off a cliff. "There was a reading?" I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the adrenaline surge flooding my system like old times. "Dennis, you were supposed to be there. Amanda said you were too distraught after Carol's funeral, that she'd handle everything and make sure you received your inheritance properly." The pieces started falling into place, and I felt my detective training kick in like muscle memory. Amanda had lied about the reading, lied about my whereabouts, lied about everything. "Mr. Reynolds," I said slowly, "I was never told about any reading. Amanda told me she inherited everything and that I got nothing from Carol's estate." His expression shifted from confusion to alarm, faster than a traffic light change. He reached for the thick file folder, his movements suddenly urgent and precise. "Dennis, that's impossible," he said, opening Carol's will to the first page. "Your wife's will is very specific and detailed about your inheritance and her wishes for distribution." He pulled out the real document, and as he began reading, I realized Amanda had lied about absolutely everything concerning my wife's final wishes and testament. "I, Carol Martinez, being of sound mind and body, do hereby bequeath to my beloved husband, Dennis Martinez, our primary residence at 1247 Maple Drive, including all furnishings and personal effects. Additionally, I leave him 75% of all financial assets, investments, and accounts totaling approximately $2.1 million. My head started spinning. $2.1 million. The house. 75% of everything we'd built together over 3 decades of marriage, saving and planning for retirement. Gerald continued reading, his voice growing more serious with each word. "To my daughter, Amanda Martinez Brooks, I leave $700,000 to be held in trust, contingent upon her treatment of her father following my death, contingent upon her treatment of me." Carol had known. Somehow she'd known exactly what Amanda would try to do. "Mr. Reynolds," I whispered, my voice barely audible in his quiet office. "Amanda told me I inherited nothing. She moved into my house. She stuck me in senior housing." The elderly lawyer's face flushed with anger, his professional composure cracking as he processed what I'd just told him about my daughter's actions over the past month. "Dennis, what Amanda has done is elder abuse and fraud. She's committed multiple felonies under both state and federal law. This is a serious criminal matter." But she had legal documents. She showed me papers with official stamps and signatures. I pulled out the folded documents Amanda had shown me from my jacket pocket. Forged, most likely, Gerald said, examining the papers with a magnifying glass from his desk drawer. Your wife updated her will 8 months before her death. He continued explaining while studying the fake documents. She was specifically concerned about Amanda's attitude toward money and her growing sense of entitlement since marrying Tyler. The room was spinning as I processed this information. All those times Amanda had dismissed my opinions, talked over me during family dinners, rolled her eyes during conversations. Carol had been watching, evaluating, making decisions about how to protect me from our own daughter's greed. She'd seen something in Amanda that I'd missed completely. There's more, Dennis, Gerald said, setting down his magnifying glass. The trust provision specifically states that if Amanda fails to treat you with respect and dignity, everything reverts. I stared at him, trying to understand the full implications. You're saying Amanda just cost herself $700,000 by throwing me out of my house? I'm saying your daughter's inheritance is now yours as well. You're not inheriting $2.1 million, Dennis. You're inheriting $2.8 million, plus the house and everything else. The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh despite the pain. Amanda had been so eager to steal my inheritance that she'd triggered Carol's protective clause. What do I do now? I asked, feeling overwhelmed by the magnitude of Amanda's deception and the legal complexities ahead of us in court. Gerald smiled for the first time since I'd arrived. Now we call the police about the fraud, and then we call Amanda and inform her about her mistake. Here's where my 30 years as a detective really paid off in ways I never expected. Instead of rushing into confrontation, I developed a comprehensive strategy. Working with Gerald and Detective Brian Walsh from my old precinct, we built a case that would stick in court and survive any appeals Amanda's lawyers might file. First, we documented everything systematically. The forged will Amanda had shown me, the real will from Gerald's files, bank records showing her unauthorized spending from restricted accounts. Brian ran the forged documents through the forensics lab and confirmed they were sophisticated fakes created by someone with access to professional equipment and legal knowledge. Then, I did what any good detective does when working an undercover operation. I went undercover in my own family to gather additional evidence. I called Amanda and played the confused old man perfectly. Honey, I'm having some trouble with the bank. They're saying there's some kind of issue with Mom's accounts. Don't worry about it, Dad, she said dismissively, not even bothering to hide her irritation. Tyler's handling all the financial stuff. You just focus on settling into your place. That entire conversation was recorded legally under our state's one-party consent laws. Amanda had no idea she was confessing to financial crimes over the phone. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered evidence, like I was working the biggest case of my career. Every conversation, every document, every suspicious transaction was cataloged. I installed a small recording device in my apartment and invited Amanda and Tyler over for what I called a family dinner to discuss my situation. They came, probably out of guilt or to maintain appearances, and spent 2 hours talking about their plans for Amanda's inheritance while I served leftover takeout. Tyler even bragged about the document specialist he knew who could create any paperwork you needed for estate planning or financial restructuring. That conversation was also recorded completely. The FBI got involved when Detective Walsh discovered that Tyler's document specialist was already under federal investigation for creating fraudulent investment documents and securities violations. This wasn't Amanda's first attempt at financial fraud. It was part of a larger white-collar crime operation that Tyler had been running through his investment firm. Agent Rachel Cooper took over the case, and together we planned what she called a textbook sting operation to catch them in the act of conspiracy. I invited Amanda and Tyler to my cramped apartment for what they thought was a surrender meeting where I'd sign over any remaining claims to Carol's estate. They arrived with briefcases full of settlement papers and immunity agreements, thinking they held all the cards and that I was too old to fight back effectively. "Dad, I'm so glad you're being reasonable about this whole situation," Amanda said, kissing my cheek like nothing had happened between us over the past month. "We've structured this very favorably for you, Dad. You keep the apartment, we'll give you $3,000 monthly for living expenses, and everyone stays happy." Tyler opened his briefcase with the confidence of someone who'd done this before, spreading documents across my tiny kitchen table like he was conducting legitimate business. "Dennis, this arrangement protects everyone's interests," he continued, pointing to settlement papers. "You get financial security, and we avoid any unnecessary legal complications or family drama. $3,000 a month from my own wife's $2.8 million estate." The audacity was breathtaking, but I kept my expression neutral and cooperative. "That seems generous," I said, letting them think they'd won completely. "But I have one question. When exactly did you two decide to forge Mom's will?" The color drained from both their faces instantly. Amanda's carefully applied makeup couldn't hide the sudden pallor, and Tyler's hand froze halfway to his briefcase. "Dad, I don't know what you think you discovered, but..." Amanda started, her voice cracking slightly as she tried to maintain control of the situation. "I think I know exactly what you did, sweetheart. The question is whether you want to confess now or wait for the FBI to explain it." That's when Agent Rachel Cooper and 3 other federal agents walked into my tiny apartment. The timing was perfect, coordinated down to the second through my hidden earpiece. "Amanda Martinez Brooks and Tyler Brooks, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, elder abuse, and document forgery under federal statutes," Agent Cooper announced clearly. The briefcase Tyler had been so proud of was immediately confiscated as evidence. His expensive pen, the settlement papers, even his cell phone disappeared into evidence bags. As the agents handcuffed them, Amanda turned to me with an expression of complete betrayal. "Dad, how could you do this to your own family? The same way you could forge legal documents and steal everything your mother left me," I replied. "Except my way is legal and protects other families." "You don't understand what you've done, Dennis," Tyler said as they led him toward the door. "There are people who won't appreciate this kind of attention." Agent Cooper paused in reading them their rights. "Mr. Brooks, are you threatening a federal witness? Because that's another felony charge we can add to your list." "I'm warning him about the reality of his situation," Tyler said, but his bravado was cracking as the handcuffs clicked into place around his wrists. "The reality," Agent Cooper said, "is that you just added witness intimidation to your federal charges. Congratulations on making this case even easier to prosecute successfully." 6 months later, I'm sitting in the kitchen of my house, making coffee and reading the newspaper on a Tuesday morning. The kitchen looks different now. I've remodeled it with Carol's insurance money, adding the breakfast nook she always wanted, but we never could afford. Amanda and Tyler each got 18-month federal sentences. The judge wasn't impressed with their financial sophistication when it came to exploiting elderly family members for personal gain. "The house is mine, the money is mine, and I've started the Carol Martinez Foundation for Elder Protection using $500,000 of the inheritance. We provide free legal aid for seniors facing family financial abuse and lobby for stronger elder protection laws. Carol would have loved seeing her money help others. Amanda has written me 14 letters from federal prison. I've read exactly none of them. Some bridges, once burned by greed and betrayal, can't be rebuilt with words. The irony isn't lost on me that Carol was right about everything. She knew Amanda's character better than I did, even in her final months battling cancer. The woman I loved for 32 years protected me even after death, and I honored that protection by making sure our daughter faced consequences for her choices. People ask if I feel bad about sending Amanda to prison. Here's what I tell them. I didn't send her to prison for stealing money. Her choices sent her to prison. I just made sure those choices had consequences instead of rewards. There's a difference between justice and revenge. Sometimes I sit in Carol's garden, which I've learned to maintain myself, and think about the grandchildren I may never see again because of Amanda's greed. That's the part that hurts most, not the money or the house, but knowing that Amanda's children will grow up understanding why their mother went to prison. They'll learn that Grandpa Dennis was the one who put Mommy in jail, not that Mommy tried to steal Grandpa's house and inheritance. But maybe that's better than them learning that stealing from family is acceptable behavior when you think you can get away with it completely. Tyler's mother called me last week, wanting to discuss the situation and find some way to resolve this matter privately for the children's sake. I told her the same thing I told the reporter from Channel 7. Actions have consequences, and her son's actions earned him a federal prison sentence. Carol's wisdom protected me when I was most vulnerable. Now I'm using that protection to help other seniors avoid what happened to me originally. Detective Walsh tells me our case has become a model for investigating elder financial abuse. Federal prosecutors are using our evidence-gathering techniques in similar cases. That makes me proud. 30 years of police work taught me to gather evidence and build cases, but Carol's love taught me why justice matters. Thanks for listening to my story. Sometimes the old dog really does learn new tricks, especially when family tries to put him down. And sometimes the pawn really does become the king in the end, just like Carol always said it would when we played chess together. The biggest lesson I learned is that family loyalty should never be mistaken for family weakness when someone tries to exploit your trust completely. Sometimes protecting yourself from the people you love most requires the same courage you'd use against any other criminal threatening your life.